Chapter 2. The House of Rats. Sister Garliette sleeps in a room located closest to the gardens, which she feels has its share of positives and negatives. The room looks about the same as all the rest, however it did have its share of unique qualities. It may have originally been a washroom for as much as she knew, however hundreds of years ago when the grounds were new. Her window may have been a mural depicting some grand moment, perhaps. But during her time here, it has been no more than a rectangular hole in the wall. The grand mural was far from the end of her fantasy, as quite often she would be lost in thought, imagining the world as she would have liked it. Something calmer, most certainly. The weather, for one, was easily predictable if your guess was that it will pour, then dry up, and then pour again. The problem was that there would be no more than a handful of minutes before the change would happen. The rainfall could clear, dry, then rain again a half a dozen times a day. Being the first to know when the storms were passing through, was not her most favorite feature. With the wind blowing hard enough to make the rain fall nearly horizontal through the opening, she usually wakes up cursing, with her sheets half wet. Whatever had filled the stone window had been destroyed hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. Today though, it was not a storm that woke her, but a voice. Her eyes flutter open as she absent-mindedly wipes her face of sleep debris, and she sees the first light of the day shining in. After a great yawn overtakes her, she listens. The singing is still there, but it is still a bit too early for the children to be awake. Perhaps one of the rats have snuck out. Oh well, she thinks. There was no great urgency to inspect the sound, as it rang through the gardens. Garliette slowly gets out of bed and pulls her outfit on over her nightgown. She was about to set a pot of water on to boil, but a thought occurred to her. That voice sounds so young, but none of the little ones know how to count so well. He goes all the way up to 20, she says to herself, before hearing him start to sing out the colors he must be seeing. Red, red, blue, orange, white, blue. He must be in the center of the garden, where all the different flowers come together. She tosses her earthen cup to the ground. It was no great thing, as it crumbled harmlessly underfoot. It was the last of a batch she had made less than a week ago, but she would shape and fire a dozen more by the end of the day. For now, she was nearly frantic with excitement, and another broken cup did not matter. Today, a new child may have arrived at Helu's diem. A small child by her guess. 4, maybe 5 years old, with a clear, beautiful voice, who was singing every word. It was a boy, which flitted through her mind as a negative, as she was hoping the next would be another girl, but the thought was forever swept away and replaced with her image of him as she quickly made herself the very least bit presentable, before throwing open her door and running toward the gardens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fish alive. From the moment she left her room, his voice was lost as she ran down the oppressively lightless hallway, but before she could pick it up again, the worst possible thing that could happen, happened. Rebecca had also woken up and stuck her head outside her door in time to hear Garliette charging toward the gardens. Her eyes grew wide as they quickly adjusted to the darkness, and understanding became evident. Still in her frumpy white sleep cottons, with her face covered in a thick green herbal mask, she made her move. Rebecca had no window in her room, so she could not have heard the boy, but everything about Gal's demeanor told her enough. Not again, she yells as she burst out of her room, positioning herself to intercept Garliette. With a pass of her hand, the muddy face mask was swept away and thrown to the center of the hallway. Out of my way, Gal yelled. But Rebecca would not back down. Most of the children staying on the grounds were in their middle years, a stubborn time where they do their best to ignore every ounce of advice. There were a few, no more than several months old, but their care was decided upon by vote and tally. For Garliette to be in such a state, means that they must be between 2 and 6 years old, she thinks. But in the rare instance a child should be found by a sister, she would be in charge of the child for a week, and if compatible, possibly for months beyond. Therefore, due to the rectangular hole in her wall, Garliette has been able to spend with them what most would consider to be the cutest and most influential stage of their lives. Where every day is a fun new adventure as they look to her for help in their new environment. Where her guidance will live within them, forever. Her room gave her the advantage here, but she had to get past Rebecca. If I could just time it right, Gal thinks, Becca will only have one chance to stop me with one of her silly little magic tricks, but which one? She had 5 that Gal knows of. She can see clearly in the dark, but that would not help her avoid getting bowled over, she thinks, as Rebecca is much smaller than her. But Garliette, unfortunately, isn't the quickest thinker, and so her plan came much too late. Rebecca simply placed a single finger against the wall, and it was done. Quick as lightning, a bright, thin white line crackled and traced itself down the wall and flashed across the ground towards the bit of mud she had thrown. Garliette could not have seen it. Rebecca was 2 steps ahead of her, and for just a second, the ground had become like ice, causing Garliette to let out a surprised yelp as gravity began to make little sense. But this was not over quite yet. Garliette had built up enough momentum that no matter which magic she used, her body would still crash hard into Rebecca, taking them both to the ground in a tangle. Each tried to get up, but the other kept pulling her back down. See? You are not so clever, I knew you would try something like this. Yet, you are still on the floor. Hardly a successful plan. Why are you even awake? You could not have heard the boy. So I am right. This is unfair. You cannot claim another child when others are waiting. I will not allow it. Allow? When did you become so important? And it is only for the first week. You are being dramatic. Let go. Absolutely not. Help. Help me, anyone. Rebecca yelled at the top of her voice, in true dramatic fashion, all the while locking her arms around Gal's waist. Mere moments later, the hallway was lighting up and filling with giggling women, who all clearly understood the situation, and in the distance, she could hear the young ones waking up. It was time to give up. Fine. Fine, I said. Get off of me. You are absolutely shameless. Kishel Granis, matron of the house, speaks up over the crowd. What is going on? Sister, there is a new boy in the garden, Rebecca answers. How old is he, Gal? I could not see him, Garliette replies, but I would guess 4 or 5. I heard him singing his numbers and colors. Kishel Granis claps her hands together as her face lights into a bright smile. Singing, you say? The matron pushes past Garliette with everyone in tow. The look Garliette gave to Rebecca would have to be revenge enough. But as they arrived to the gardens, there was no child to be seen. It was Trader Grelis's voice that cut through the commotion. Fengia took the lad to the men's kitchens. Brash will know if the boy stands hearty and hale, and after that they'll bring him over to the women for coddling. A cold smirk of disappointment ran across more than a few of the women's faces, as this was a sign to scatter. Rebecca shook her head at Gal, waved hello to Trader Grelis, then began the walk back to her room. Unlike most of the men allowed into the house, Grelis was not here to court one of the sisters. He was a longtime trader whose family had sold and supplied the house for generations. This, the 6th of his line to take up the kindness, was much less the rugged man than his father. And for a good reason. Grelis Senior the 5th was more of an adventurer than trader. The man couldn't sit still, and he pushed the limits of his journeys as far as he would dare, bringing the household more tales than fresh food. They would never complain, but the newest head of the family, they felt, was nothing less than a blessing. Food, clothing for all ages, and supplies to the point where they had to decline at times due to lack of space. Grelis VI, you see, loved every aspect of being a trader. His work was more than his legacy, but a sincere effort of goodwill to help those who could not help themselves. And nothing showed that, quite as well as the woman he calls his wife. Where's your better half? She took off to the slums again, said something about the game those rats play. I don't remember the name, but she took a bag of those pressed leaf spheres they toss about. Will she be all right? My girl knows how to handle herself. Besides, they know her face is a good one, and the people down there would kill for a kindness. Sorry to the one who tries to take her away from that lot. But enough of your niceties, go on and ask about the boy. How old is he? He laughs heartily. You're as obvious as the weather. He's 3 years old. How do you know that? He told me. He can converse. Quite a lot, in fact. Nothing like you and I having a chat. You see, he says everything in song, but if you can follow his mind a bit, you'll see what he means. Wait, but where did he come from? Do you know that? I do not. Found him sitting on that patch of grass I planted a few years ago, naked as a bird and having a bit of a song. Which grew in wonderfully. You know, I got the seeds for that garden from. Her expression sours towards the change in topic. Ah, never mind. You only have ears for the lad, I see, and I don't blame you. Charming, wouldn't do the boy justice. I doubt the matrons will keep the boy for less than a month before saying he's clear to be amongst the sisters. But don't believe them. I put him in some fresh clothes after getting a diaper on him, and he's as healthy a lad as I've ever seen. They would not. Calm, calm. I'm mostly pulling your leg. Everything about the boy is true, but it is more likely they'll want him making his introductions sooner than later. He's gonna be good to have around. Thank you, Grellis. Go on. Ah, but first, I nearly forgot, take this to your man Yaston, he says as he pulls a dusty old book from his pack and wraps it in linens. The child had me forgetting that I was holding on to this. Of course. Farewell, trader. Garliette resigns herself to what comes next. She did not know why, but as she waved goodbye to Grellis and walked closer to the men's kitchen, she began to feel nervous. She was awkward when turning down her fair share of advances, but they weren't the sort to persist. Honor for the men meant believing that any of them could be reconsidered even after having been refused. They would remain respectful at large, but the kitchens were a different story. There were no classes mandatory for the rats to attend, and they could leave at any age should they decide. No adults were allowed to press their knowledge, so they used other means to gain their interest. And for the last few years, the rats were most in agreement that the food they ate during their lessons with the men was better by far. Entering the kitchens would be a hassle, but she would deal with it. She doesn't think that either of the two who've pledged themselves to her would be there. Joran would be preparing survival activities disguised as games for the young who were near the age of confliction. He would often consult her whilst devising these elaborate exercises, always unsure of whether a fun activity had taught enough or whether a serious lesson was fun enough. Like the others, he was in his own way, perfect. Taller than her by a hand, with a lean and muscular build, one would be forgiven for assuming he thought of nothing more than his own reflection. Nothing at all like Yaston, who persisted in looking as though he most recently tumbled down a hill. He was quite charming when he wanted to be, but he loved nothing more than to collect and restore the crumbling works of literature that the trader Grellis would sometimes stumble across. How she wound up with a pair of brothers as options was the talk amongst the other sisters for a time. But for the truth of it, she had come to consider each as dear to her. But they likely would not be there. Instead, Verian the Hungry, a younger man, new to the house, lingered beyond the entrance to the underground men's kitchens. He was watching as the women appeared in search of the child, though his expression was unreadable. Casting aside her irritation at the morning's kerfuffle, she set her mind to making her introduction. Hopefully she would find him more pliable than most of the kitchen men. Setting her most pleasant smile upon her face, she says, "They've kicked you out again." "You must be Garliette," he says. "So you know of me?" She replies. "I know what you're doing. When she wants something she'll try to talk to you, I heard, all nice and casual. Then before you know it, she'll have you in her pocket." I don't put much faith in rumors, but you fit every bit of the description. That was quite the scene. I haven't a clue what you're talking about. Who told you that? He smiles sheepishly, and taps one finger against his left ear. I was born with a sliver of hearing infinite. Though I can hear a few hundred yards, it is not a magic I can control all the time. That being said, it probably was not the best plan, rushing down a woman of magic like Rebecca. I see, hungry for information. I would have imagined such a moniker would apply to someone more robust. But that makes perfect sense. I'll have something prepared for next time. I wish to see the boy. Will you try to stop me, my new friend, Verian? Not at all, go ahead. I'm a man grown, so they really have no business putting me on guard duty over the silly pissing contest they play with the women. What about learning how to cook? I heard Brash wanted you helping out. My ears are nothing compared to how you come about your information. He assumed that my work with blades would do well in the kitchens, but it is not for me. I care not for the difference between a carrot chopped or sliced. Galliette replies, that would be a waste of your talents, I'm certain. Peeling potatoes and chopping onions is not for me either. Why not teach the young? There's plenty of room for further education, and the times aren't getting any easier. Best not, or we'll have the lot of them throwing spoons against the walls by sundown. Then I may actually feel bad during a scolding from Brash. He's far too serious. If it were up to me, let the children throw spoons, did you say? Why spoons? What madman puts a blade in a child's hand and tells them to toss it? Best get the aim down first, safely and all that. Oh right, you see. You already sound like a teacher. Let the rats throw spoons or whatever. Then they can learn how to mend it and how to fix a wall as well, huh? I'll tell Grellis we need some supplies and I'll have a group for you by tomorrow. That way Brash shouldn't have to yell, and when you're dead and gone the little ones will keep your lessons alive. Everyone wins. Bring food. Did I just agree to something? I'm still in range to last a good while on the hunt. Most of the old ones like Brash would drop dead the second they left the grounds, so I'll stick to what I'm good at while I can. Better not let them hear you call them old. Still, tomorrow you'll teach what you can, it won't take long, right? The idea is not hard to understand, it is just practice and a few tips really. Perfect. So 1 hour and then you can grumble off to your hunt. If any show promise, then we can also discuss a schedule for taking a few rats with you. Although, you know we get more than enough supplies with Grellis as trader. I know, but you can never have enough money put away just in case, and food's the best way to get some. I've spent time as a raider and it is nasty work. It's wise to have your own paid men to keep things calm should the red come knocking. I've been here but a few days, but it seems like this place has only known peace, and I would prefer it stayed that way. Thank you, Ver. Put in a good word with Rebecca for me, will you? Oh, and they might ask what happened to me. I believe I shall. I can already tell that you have the perfect temperament for this place. What should I tell the men? The truth, of course. That I was no match for you at all. Her laugh came as a surprise to Verian. Though not the most graceful sound, it was loud and infectious, and he couldn't help but smile as she passed down the stairs and through the doors to the underground. A chorus of noise assaulted her all at once. The sound reminded her of the battle arcade the warrior men set up for the young ones, except instead of a cacophony of clattering and yelling, it was more akin to a rowdy night in a tavern. They were singing, though the words were muffled through the heavy iron doors that stood before the true entrance to the kitchens. What's more is that she could hear the sound of pots being banged together in a rhythm that echoed into the hallway. This was nothing at all like what one would expect from a kitchen run by Brash. Demanding silence when at work, he was warden and executioner of any who would disrupt his flow. A state the kitchen women would often compare to a function of their own biology, mocking him as best they may, for what else could they do? The man will cook for everyone except the 13 adult women, a historical first for the house, leaving the other men to handle preparing ingredients and forging the occasional plate or cup. The women's kitchen became more of a meeting room for discussion or gossip than necessary for the running of the grounds. Though less than 50 rats, the 4 women who've chosen to run the kitchens used to struggle to feed every age every meal, let alone have time to manage lessons for the lot, and wash the clothing of the 22 girls under their own care. Before he arrived, lunch times were very often a test of patience. Some of the younger ones would always end up refusing a meal, and the older children would pick at their food with very little enthusiasm. Instead, they would socialize, with childish pestering leading to fights among those closest to leaving the grounds that would leave the floor littered in the soft and crumbly remains of their cups and plates. Firing new ones every meal was exhausting for everyone. But now, you would hear nothing but the sound of food being devoured. No longer did the little ones complain, nor did the older ones have time to argue. They would finish their meals and go off with renewed drive toward whatever stood before them that day. Perhaps what insulted the women the most was that Brash had gotten to trade a Grellis. Under normal circumstances, Gal would have refused to believe that any of them could keep something to themselves. They had never kept secrets, as though the idea itself was unfathomable. Grellis III was said to go so far as to answer questions by singing outlandishly long and detailed songs and poems about how she learned the information. It was known to everyone that if you had something to keep hidden, you should never tell it to a trader. She thinks the saying must have originated with Grellis I, but to the point, Grellis VI would not share the ingredients he collected for Brash. We go way back, and I owe him a life debt. He saved our eldest from a bad spot, and he's been a good friend to our family for many years. I know how he is about his food, so I can't say nothing more. It would be much simpler if the head of the women's kitchen were of a softer temperament. Upon meeting Brash for the first time, the man had prepared a few meals as a courtesy, but she chose that very moment of goodwill to offer very harsh critique of his dishes. She would think of herself as consumed with regaining her position as best in the house, but it was clear to everyone else that she was completely in love with the man. But from the bumpy beginnings, things have only progressed negatively. As Garliette moves down the short hallway, it occurs to her that she's lightly pressing one foot upon the ground before the other. What's gotten into me, she thinks before straightening her back and clearing her throat. Her intention was to announce herself and demand they show the boy to her, but a loud, hum, behind her nearly made her jump out of her skin. With her vision finally adjusting to the dim light within the hallway, she turns, only to find herself blinded again. A gruff voice says, "No bother having to dress down Verian if it's you, what mission did you press upon him? How does your mad beard not shed throughout the entire kitchen?" she says, as she takes a step away to disentangle herself. "Because it knows better. Answer or I'll tell your pretty brothers in perfect detail how I caught you sneaking in here like you meant to make off with the child in a flour sack." "He'll be teaching a class in the morning," she says in a mumble. "It's only an hour, but more urgently I must inform you that he called you an old one." "So what that I'm old? His lack of respect is mutual in any case. How a man could throw a blade makes zero bloody sense to me. But you did walk right by me without a single notice, so nothing seems impossible anymore. But I'll make a cook of him if it kills him. Your passion is an inspiration, now, can I?" "No. Go away." But a grin spreads itself upon his face as he says, "We've already named him." "No, you did not. You're right. It is more truthful to say your man Grellis named him." "I'll kill him." "You won't. And he did not do it with intention in any case. Says, make sure the lad's hearty and hale, and since then when we ask the boy's name he keeps singing the words, hearty and hale. He seems born with the hearty bit, so our wish for the lad is that he be hale." Garliette sighs in resignation and says, "I am defeated. Today is proving to be irksome. Do you intend to keep him with the men?" "We could, but this turn we've got men better suited for war than childcare. No one would deny that the system you women have done up with have kept those rats alive for years longer than most of them out there. You mean it? I would think a man of war would find our way too loosey-goosey. I don't know the last words, but I get your meaning, and yes. It should not work, and I don't know how it does, but they leave here strong. If you let me at least enter the kitchens, I simply wish to try and see the boy. Hale. Yes. I will help you with your heart condition. My what? Miss D12, I believe. What can you do? A lot. Now let me in. I don't trust your methods. What exactly will you do? Perhaps I'll tell her the story of how you named the boy. But I did not. I'll not have you lie to her. You'll just have to tell the story to her, properly, over dinner. I doubt that she often hears such things about you, and I couldn't, not over dinner. Find something else to occupy our time. I'd not like getting into another argument over our methods. I'm saying I'll figure something out. She's just not the easiest to talk to. Go in, but we have a deal. I swear to it. Thank you, brah. Get to move on. Okay, all right. Pulling open the door to the kitchens could only be described by Galliette, as though she were entering the heavens. The room was a spotless and shining white, and the reflection of the tube lights running along the ceiling instantly blinded her as she entered past the dim hallway. It was only for a second, but the chatter of noise within made it feel longer. She blinks a few times and comes to see 5 men staring at her with shit-eating grins on their faces. Galliette looks from corner to corner of the room, and doesn't see the boy at all. Before her mouth could open, the men broke out in laughter from the absolute dumbfounded expression on her face. And then they sang, "Hearty and hail, hearty and hail." They repeated the words with sharply rising and falling inflection, changing between a soft, almost girlish pitch to a low, deep rumble. "Where is he? Brash. Get in here, please." "Ah. That was quick. Your man Yaston took the lad through the underground to the matron then, it seems. I was told he was on the way. Well, you've entered my kitchen and attempted to see the lad." It was Fengia who spoke up then. Brash couldn't have known, they departed mere moments ago. "Deal's a deal," says Brash over her shoulder. "Fuck. Any luck I could go through and none. Ain't no light down there, and we've got no one to spare to guide you. Normally we would not take a lad that young through, but when we heard Yaston he ran right into the tunnel. Yast has got him, but it doesn't seem to bother him a bit. The dark, I mean. What was he like, Fen? Is telling you a part of this deal I heard you making with the big man." "It is not," Brash says. "I got it, I'm going." She could feel their smug expressions on her back as she left the kitchens, but this was not over. Again the sting of light took a moment to get used to after exiting back onto the surface. "How'd it go?" Galliette cocks her head to the side and says, "Don't you already know?" "Not always, but this time, yeah. It doesn't make for great conversation if you always think I know everything already." "Ah, yes. I'm sorry, Ver. You're right. So what's next? Surely you haven't given up," he says. "Not at all. Wait. Didn't you see the boy?" "Sorry, I did not. We passed in the hallway so I never got a chance, but he was singing up a storm. There was something he sang that must have hit home with the big guy, because I heard him laughing. With all the noise I couldn't pick out what it was though." The old codger spoke truthfully about the boy's name, as well. "I shouldn't have asked. That's making me far more curious and much more irritated. Damn Rebecca and her silly tricks. Would it help to know that she held back? Those with wisps of control over the elements can be frightening if they put their mind to using it cleverly. And she is certainly clever. Yes, you're smitten. In truth, under normal circumstances she's quite pleasant. It doesn't seem like such a punishment to introduce the two of you, but damn it, I forgot that now I need to speak to D12. Ver, Allow me 10 paces and then end my suffering. Yet I cannot. I'm smitten. Garliette sticks her tongue out at Verian and makes an obscene sound before saying, "Till later, Ver. Good luck, Garliette." As she walks past the gardens, Garliette begins to put herself in order. I should stop back into my room. The rest of the day awaits and I could do better than my current appearance. Looking quite shabby is a poor way to gain interest on an instructor's behalf, she says to herself. I think I'll easily find rats for Verian's lessons tomorrow morning, and though many will leave once they learn they cannot immediately begin throwing daggers, that's likely for the best. Aside from which, most have already entered into instruction with one, if not several of the classes available. Kijenery is always popular, with her lessons on weaponsmithing, though she has competition from Kirlau, who specializes in forging a variety of useful day-to-day items. The former would be ideal for those looking to travel, but the latter would be best for those who wish to work in one of the trade jobs in Midtown and start a family one day. I could see if any more wished to try them perhaps. No. If today is going to be difficult, I may as well get done with all the impossible tasks. Her mind was made up. She would next speak with Ch2, otherwise known as the power before God. Returning to her room, Garliette would need to look respectful. I'm not sure my usual atmosphere would come off so well, she thinks, as she inspects herself in the mirror. It would help were my hair not a bit of a mess. No time like the present to get back on with Becca, since she isn't one to hold a grudge. I could get her thoughts on Verian while I'm at it, she says to herself. A sudden knock on her door slightly startled her out of her thoughts. It's open, she calls out. I know, I still like knocking. How are you today, gal? Garliette shoots Yaston a sideways glance, but he genuinely seems to have been left out of the morning's incident. His face was dirty and his hair contained bits of spider webbing. Do you ever pass a mirror between your bed and my chambers? That rough, huh? He replies. Well, it will delight you to know that a new child has joined this orphanage of rats. A wonderful lad. I believe he was born with my favorite quality, self-assurance. A 10-minute walk in absolute darkness would shake the nerves of most people, but he would run with his arms outstretched until he collided with a wall. He doesn't have the night eyes, either. Those of us with the gift can see the light in the eyes of the others, but all the same, he would charge forward. I had to chase him down a few times, but I could pick him up and set him in the right direction, and off he went. Stop talking about this mythical child. Hail. I know. Ah. Ha ha. I see. Forgive me, my wits have finally come about. It's fine. I just have a bit of work to do and then I can focus. What impossible task will you take on today? I intend to have Ch2 take on a pupil. Perhaps you misunderstood, I was only joking when I suggested you take on the impossible. If you must, I suggest you set your hair in a braid. Do you know which is appropriate? There are ones that would offend. Oh my, yes. Though it is not difficult to understand. Since you're not pretending to be a warrior, you should keep it simple. A single braid that pulls your hair from your face would suffice. Do you need assistance? I'm a fair hand at such things. Thank you, but no. I intend to have Rebecca do it as a pretense for setting her up with that new man, Verian. The lad that wears brushes rage upon his back. The very same. If you say they're compatible, I have no reason to doubt it. I only know of his skills on the hunt, and it is remarkable. They would make quite the lethal combination. Garliette replies, he has a humor about him, which is rare for a hunter. I'm just about ready. Oh, but there's a book here from Grelis for you. Ah, wonderful. The last one turned out to be somewhat of a disappointment. More lusty adventures. Where that I could be so lucky. No. The last was a 1,000-page document following the shipments of various goods between the Outlands and a country I've never heard of. Nothing useful for reclaiming the time before the fall? She asked. Not exactly. It helps to know that the times were similar to our own, but I was hoping for more than the movement of livestock and cloth. Well, I hope you fare better with this new one, she says as she hands him the cloth-wrapped tome. It's quite dusty, so I'd appreciate it if you did not begin your examination just this moment. He was in the midst of unwrapping the book, clearly excited to dive into his new project, but he stops and smiles. Of course. I hope your day brightens with every step. She hugs Yaston after picking a few bits of webbing from his hair, then places a friendly kiss upon his cheek. We'll meet for dinner soon, and then you can tell me all about your discoveries. They leave her room together, and split up as he enters into a passageway leading into darkness. She inhales deeply and exhales with a sigh. She's looking forward to making amends with Rebecca, though the rest of her day still stands before her. Arriving at her room, Galliette pounds loudly on the door, and within seconds Rebecca opens it but a crack. I'm in need of your assistance, witch. Of course you need my help, brute. What is it today? She asks, opening her door in full. Her expression the definition of distrust. I'm going to petition our divine warrior to take on a pupil. There's one who has shown a great interest, and if given a chance, the little rat may in fact prove worthy. That seems a bit unkind. Why would they not seek instruction from Elkan or Keirhorn? The child is not the patient sort. That, and her magic. Rebecca's eyes lit up. What form does it take? She's too young to know for sure, but I've observed a bit of strangeness around her recently during a meal. Sit down and tell me everything. You'll need a braid. How does everyone seem to know this but me? You won't like my answer. Now sit. As Galliette takes a seat before a mirror, Rebecca passes her hand above Gal's head. Her wild and curly hair immediately straightens. That felt weird. Must you use your tricks? I also have a life to live, and I'd not spend it all day on your bird's nest of hair. Fine. But anyway, the girl. Where was I? You mentioned a strangeness. Right. I find her taking a meal in the yard, watching the birds bathing in the fountains as the other rats kicked a ball about. It was struck hard and flew towards her, but before I could call out a warning, I blinked, and the ball was set on the ground, completely still, mere inches from her body. She hadn't moved, I'm sure of it, and her back was turned, so I don't think she even saw it coming. It's unlikely that she was completely unaware. There's no magic that functions autonomously. For some, it comes and goes seemingly at random. Their control is intermittent and often lost as they cannot bring it to maturity. But as for witch magic, I'm not sure. I was born to ice, but the others I picked up over time, and most aren't as clear-cut as the elements. Did she appear fatigued? She appeared unfazed. The rats called for their ball and she tossed it back. That's as much as I can say. What of the child's name? She keeps to herself, so she has not gotten one from the rats. She calls herself Ulran. A family name perhaps? I don't think so. She arrived at the same age as this new child of legend, yet some 3 years ago by now. I don't think she would remember much from her past, but I also have no interest in pursuing the information. The past could hold dark memories for a child. Exactly. The best I can do is to engage with her interests, which at the moment lie with Kirchakris. Ah. But on the topic of following interests, you have a date prepared. Do you have plans for late this afternoon? If so, cancel them. Excuse me. With whom? Does it matter? The house will turn to dust before you find a better companion. They're kind and charming, and a magnificent listener. Quite attractive, for as little as that matters to you. Consider it payment for doing my hair. But you seem to have set this up before even asking me to do it. I'm a master of planning, as you well should know. Rebecca stays quiet for a moment, while twisting and pulling the strands of Gal's hair into place. This isn't a joke. Your vengeance for this morning. No. I'm quite serious. Simply speak with him and you'll see what I mean. Moreover, he's convinced that you're the light that shines upon Fior and believes you to have a wonderful mind. I wanted to correct him in full, but I doubt he'd listen. All right, I'm in. Where is this going to take place? As the sun sets, near the fountains. That's among my favorite areas of the grounds. Calm down, that part's my idea. Then you really must want this to work. I'll approach with an open mind. You're all done, by the way. Thank you, Becca. What does he look like? You'll know from the way he smiles as you approach. Ah, fine, but that's a wicked trick to pique my interest, and it is working. I know you well, witch. Thank you again, Becca. Best of luck with Ch2. I truly hope for your success. They hug each other before Gal takes her leave of Becca's room. A simple, friendly gesture, but one which put Gal's mind at ease. Ch2 would be far more approachable than Dialog, but she will have to get past her reservations against taking on a new pupil. She heads out to the gardens once again, where Ch2 still milled about. It was as good a time as any to pick up more materials. Oh, you're looking quite serious. Is there trouble? Hopefully not. I mean to petition the power. I require spoons. Then you'll need the best, so I'm glad you asked. I have a beautiful set I discovered, but Gal cuts him off before he heads full steam into a tale. Nothing fancy. In fact, the opposite would be best. About 20. They're for tossing. Ah, yes, of course. For tossing, he says absent-mindedly. He seems confused but sets himself to shifting boxes upon his cart. Here you go. I suppose I'm glad to be rid of them. Helen has been wanting me to, but I cannot stand to throw out something that could be useful. Your decision may yet save a few more of these rats' lives. He beams at her words. Anything else, you know where to find me. She smiles and nods, and after bidding farewell once again to Ch2, she takes the small box of spoons over to Verian, who had been watching her with anticipation clear across his countenance. Do you know? I do not, he replies. And it is actually killing me. But you have news, I presume. She will meet you this evening as the sun sets. She will seek you out at the fountains. That's my favorite place upon these grounds. Enough. I'm getting sick at how cute you two will be together. As long as you don't do anything boorish, of course. A large smile fills his face, but before he can reply she says. And be sure to smile like that when you see her. It's the only clue she has to know with whom she's to meet. Got it. As for the box, the tools I requested, I presume. She nods and hands the box to him. His expression makes it clear that they're not exactly as he would have liked. Take them to Ch2. He will welcome whatever task you ask of him. They just need to be better balanced, but I've yet to meet him. Is it best to be formal? Not at all. Ch2 enjoys the forge and your intentions will provide an adequate change of pace, I assume. You have more than my thanks. I swear I won't ruin the chance you've given me. Best not. I've never seen Becca truly upset, and I doubt you'd survive playing with the heart of someone so clever. Verian waves goodbye to Garliet as she makes her way towards the staircase that leads upward towards the training grounds. She climbs the winding steps, thinking of each response to whatever may arise during her conversation with Ch2. After a 10-minute climb, Garliet reaches the top of the staircase, which leads out onto a small plateau on the mountainside. To her left, the training grounds were located past a large iron door. I needn't bother going within. Ch2 is not known to be fond of enclosed spaces, she says to herself. The area within was sprawling, with several sections set up in order to best meet the needs of the various war instructors. But navigating it would be difficult. She could see a few dozen rats being guided in a group warm-up, their backs overlooking the grounds below, as well as the warm morning glow of sunrise. A handful of rats waved hello to Gal as she passed by. She smiles in return, but presses a finger to her lips and points towards War Master Keirhaulen. That particular instructor would not be pleased should the student's attention stray for too long, but he gave her his customary scowl and a nod as his way of saying hello as well. She walks around for a short while, then comes to find Ch2 seated, reading a book under a single massive fir tree. It has been a long time, Garliet, she says, her tone light. Your hair is wrong for you, but I will not take offense. It is a good effort. Who did it for you? Not Yaston, I hope. He would know better than to give you a virgin braid. He likely knows one better suited for your personality. Excuse me, Garliet replies. You know he often surprises me with some molding scribble in a decrepit text, whenever it makes some mention of the ancient times. He certainly know more about it than I can remember. Hold on Ch2, a what braid? Virgin, of course. It is a style that implies that you are here to ask for my hand in marriage. Innocent of mind and pure of body, and all that. Each loose strand of hair represents how many children you wish to have. Certainly a matter to be taken seriously, however I am not sure that was the intent. She laughs gleefully. Otherwise I'm flattered, but 8 children, I cannot provide you with. That which. Ch2 continues to giggle as she watches Garliet's face show signs of comprehension. I will always feel sorry that she had to come back here, but you two have always made the most amusing pair. But forgive me, your intention was to say that you have important matters to discuss. Come and sit, I was just taking a break. Do you have word of a raid, perhaps? Garliet thanks her as she takes a seat on the ground, facing Ch2. No, the Red have avoided this place during their sweeps. Either from fear of you, or understanding that we can deal with our own problems should they arise from within. Then it is a matter of the work you do. I will remind you that I have no interest in teaching until the matron accepts my conditions. Young Brix will never again have use of his left arm. Does that not concern you? He does not blame you for what happened. When he left the house he only wished to find his own power. Blame. Garliet, do you think of me as a woman of such whimpering measures? The boy will live, it does not matter to me if he lost an arm or an eye in the effort. That is not why I refuse. She sighs in exasperation. Were the rats not so frail, I would gladly take on the lot. It is much too difficult when they fall apart so easily. You would have them shattered. It was decided the pain was too great. Trials will come early in their lives, and they will never be ready, relying on tricks and cleverness as the other instructors insist. They need strength, not power. Power will never care for your well-being. Gal, few know better than I, the endless hollow one can feel in life, and it is much worse than turning their bones to dust. If you only teach them how to run they will live in fear of the inevitable. Pain, like death, is blind on your child. It comes for us all, we can only try to be strong. Fine. I agree. In general. You do. Yes. So I will appeal to your practical side. To shatter them would limit their potential for growth. They could never replace you as the pillar of strength you've become. Also, you're old. At this point there are none alive who would stay true to your ways. In short, we need a replacement for you. Her eyes grow wide at Garliet's words. It was as though she had been physically struck. You lice-ridden rat, I have never heard you speak in such a way. She seems ready to continue but she pauses in consideration. You haven't told me something important. Some reason you'd be willing to risk crippling another rat. You have someone in mind already. Yes. One who does not idolize you as young Brix had. She wants your strength for herself. So she sent you. I believe she would be up to the task. I have given her my word that I would do anything to see that you accept. Then let us get on with it. Stand, Garliet. I will show you what it means to petition for this child. Garliet, what does it mean to you, when you set a rat upon a path. It gives them the opportunity to have control over their future. And thereafter, does it ever pain you to think of what hardships they may face, following this path you helped facilitate? No. I find my strength whenever a child thanks me before they leave this place. If they can be satisfied with the burden placed upon them, then I can be satisfied that I made the correct choice. Young Bricks is among the many who have thanked me. You're proud of yourself. Still, how far would those ideals carry, were I not here? You can only speak such lofty words because you are protected. When you set Bricks upon the path that led to me, he became someone special in my life. He reminded me of a time raising my own child, and I forgot my purpose. I forgot who and what I am. And for that lapse, he suffered. But he understood the risks. He knew exactly what would happen if he used his full strength, but he did it anyway. That was the 7th time he had broken his arm, Galliette. The machines that remain in this place had been able to fix him each time before, but this was too much for even them. Does your dedication go so far? Would you know the pain of finding strength? I've never had the opportunity to suffer it. I know that I'm no warrior, but I will not allow that as an excuse to doubt my conviction. There is no path I set a child upon that I would be unwilling to face myself. Then we near the end of our discussion. No more missed opportunities to prove yourself, rat. You will strike this tree, like so. She stands in position and punches the tree, the impact causing the leaves to fall around them while the very ground shook. Your turn, she says to Galliette. Galliette assumes the pose she was shown, yet before she could begin, Ch2 asks, what is the name of this child? She has been given no name by the other rats. She calls herself Ulran, Galliette replies. Her fist lashes out upon the infinitely dense wood of the fior tree. The strike was perfect, an exact reproduction of the form Ch2 had demonstrated. She used her hips and shoulder to thrust her fist forward, the blow landing exactly at her eye level, marking the tree with the blood that poured from out of her shattered hand. Her fingers hung loosely and at improper angles, while bits of bone had ripped through her skin. The sharp pop of her shoulder being dislocated rang through her ears, yet Galliette did not scream. Her breathing came in ragged gasps, like a wounded animal viciously clinging to life. She slowly turns to face Ch2, holding the pulverized remains of her right hand with her left, and repeats the name through tightly clenched teeth. Ulran. Before all goes black.